Hi everyone, so nice to be connecting with you again. Today I have an interesting topic to talk about. It was something that came up in a recent conversation I had with a good friend of mine. We were talking about the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, which you guys celebrate in the US. In the UK we don't celebrate that, so it wasn't really such an issue for me. But my friend had quite a bit of anxiety about this, having to spend time with the family, with the in-laws, the extended family and so on. I think for anyone this can be a stressful situation, but for people who are spiritually awakening, it's really, really difficult. It's a real challenge. And I'm sure those of you who are watching this can probably relate to this. If you've gone through anything which I've gone through, or which my friend was also going through, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. When you are awakening to your spiritual nature, you're interacting with a completely different vibration, a completely different level of consciousness. That makes it more and more difficult for you to relate to members of your family and extended family, and people that you used to have normal conversations with, but now you find it more and more difficult to relate to them. And even just to be in their presence sometimes can be a real challenge. And when you think about it from a spiritual perspective, I mean, not just from the kind of psychological perspective, that in itself is difficult enough, having to deal with strong personalities or people who have different ideas from you, that in itself is difficult. But from a spiritual perspective, imagine the situation that you as a soul, as an immortal spirit, you've incarnated on this earth in a family, and the members of that family, they're not going to be on the same level as you spiritually. I'm not saying that you're better than them. It's just a completely different level of consciousness. And when you're born into a family, you're born into a family for a reason, to do with your karma and to do with the lessons that you have to learn, and also the people that you have to help as well. But the people in your family, they come from completely different backgrounds, spiritually speaking. From previous lives, from previous incarnations, they have a completely different spiritual history and a different level of spiritual consciousness to go with that. So when you're born into a family, it's almost like you're kind of being just thrown into a group of people that you don't really know and maybe you don't even get on with. But you're obliged to get on with them because that's your family. That's your biological family that you've been born into and that you've grown up into. So when the holidays come around, this creates a lot of anxiety for people like us who are kind of going through that spiritual transformation. It can be really tough when you have to spend time with family members that you don't particularly relate to, and they share different values to you. Your kind of new spiritually developing values are very different to the old values of your family members. And that can create friction and it can create difficulties if you don't know how to manage that very well. So I wanted to share with you a few ideas of how you can manage that, some things which I myself put into practice and which usually helps me. So when I'm with my family and I have to go for Christmas, for example, to go and stay with them, I love being with them because they're so loving, they're so supportive, and they're very open with me, and I can be very open with them. So I do love my family and I love being with them. However, it's still really difficult for me because I don't relate to them in the same way that other people do. We're on a completely different level, spiritually speaking. It no longer interests me to talk about the kind of things they like to talk about. So it's really difficult for me, and they can't really understand me because they're not in that kind of level of awareness. So there's no way they can understand me. So what do I do in that situation? There's a number of things which I do. One is that it's really important to take time out for yourself when you're with them during the holiday. So however long you're staying with them, maybe for a week or a couple of weeks or whatever, make sure you take a bit of time out for yourself, even if it's just to go half an hour for a walk by yourself, just so that you've got time to kind of reconnect and center yourself spiritually. So that's one thing you can do. You can go for walks in nature. Maybe you like to do meditation or do some yoga early in the morning when no one else is around. Anything like that, whatever it is that you enjoy most, spending time with yourself, just to get away from them for a few moments. Okay, the other thing which I do is, and this may sound strange to some of you, but for me it works quite well, is to become an actor. Yes, become an actor in the family. What I mean is, take part in what's going on, participate in the conversation, do the activities and everything else with everyone, but do it as an actor. So it's not really what you like, it's not really what you relate to, it's not really who you really are, who your authentic self is, but go along with it and do it in the spirit of acting. But when you're doing that, stay connected with your spirituality. Because if you don't, you're not being authentic. You're being false, all right? And I'm not telling you to be false. No, I want you to stay connected with your spirituality, but on the external, on the outside, act in a way which is similar to everyone else in the family, as long as you're staying within your spiritual values. Now, that's not easy to do, but you can do that when you connect with yourself spiritually. When you're rooted in your spirituality, you develop that capacity to kind of act externally, kind of giving an appearance, as it were, participating in the activities, but you're not really in it. You're kind of involved, you're kind of going through the motions, but you're kind of centered in yourself spiritually. And if you can do that with love, then it works. It works very well. The love comes through you and goes to your family members, but you're acting the external appearance of the activities that you're doing. So you're honoring your own spirituality by staying within yourself, and at the same time you're still able to transmit that love and affection to your family members. It's quite difficult to do that, but when you root yourself in your spirituality and you try doing this acting thing, you'll find that it can actually work quite well. And then there's one other thing which I also would recommend for you, and that is when the moment is right, or when the moment is appropriate, just be your true self in front of your family members. When I say be your authentic true self, I mean just be who you are. You know, you're a spiritual person, you have spiritual values, and you've got love with that. Just be that love and that spiritual light, and just even say things that you relate to in front of your family members. And if you do that in the right moment, it will have a really amazing, surprising effect. If you do it in the wrong moment, then they'll just kind of look at you and think that you're crazy or weird. But don't worry if that happens. You know, who cares if you're weird? And that's just part of the fun part of being a spiritual person. But if you do it in the right moment, it can have an amazing effect. And I'll give you a brief example what happened with me, with my family, several times. But one particular time, so we sat down for the Christmas dinner, and I suppose in the States you have the Thanksgiving dinner, which is kind of similar, I guess. And normally in our family, we just kind of like, okay, put the food on the table and dive in and just start eating, you know. That's kind of what our family is like normally. And it's good fun, you know, we're all here to kind of celebrate and relax and stuff. So there's nothing wrong with that. But me personally, one of my spiritual values is that I always like to appreciate the food that we have. And I like to give thanks that we've got this amazing, delicious food. And normally I just do that for myself in my own mind, just quietly to myself, because my family members don't normally do that, so I don't want to kind of impose my spiritual practices on them. But one day, one Christmas, I decided that I wanted to kind of make this public in front of my family. And I was a bit anxious because I thought that they were going to just look at me and kind of complain, or even maybe tell me to shut up or be quiet and just get on with eating this food, or the food's getting cold, come on, whatever. But I decided to do it anyway. So I just said, just a few moments, I said, everyone, do you mind if I just say a few words to give thanks for the food that we're receiving? And I did it, and it was very short, just a very short sort of prayer. I just said to give thanks and to remember where this food has come from, to remember the life that has been given up so that we can eat and be nourished in our bodies. And I just said a few moments of this prayer, and I was surprised at the effect it had. Everybody in my family, they all went quiet, and they all went kind of into deep thought, and they all suddenly went very pensive, and they all looked really spiritual, which I thought was so funny for my family to look spiritual. But they really appreciated it, and it was just for a few moments, and they really appreciated it, and they kind of respected my spiritual values in this situation, and I think it kind of just improved the whole meal a little bit, and they loved it. So this is just an example to say to you that in the right moment, it's good for you just to be your authentic, true spiritual self with your family. And if you do that with love, if you've got real genuine love coming out at the same time, that you'll be surprised at their reaction. They will look at you in a different way if you do that. All right. So these are three things which I recommend you can try as a spiritually awakening person who has to spend time with family and extended family members. Try these three things. Take time out for yourself. Become an actor, but rooted in your spirituality. And also, don't be afraid to be your true, authentic spiritual self with your family, as long as you have love when you're doing it. And I promise you, if you can combine these strategies together, you'll be able to manage this uncomfortable, difficult challenge that you have of having to spend time with members of the family that perhaps you don't really relate to so much as you used to. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Sorry if this is going on a bit. Maybe it's going on a bit longer than I expected. But anyway, I hope that you get something out of this. And for all my US friends, I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. And if you're watching this at some other time, then I wish you also a happy Christmas or whatever family holiday you have coming up. All right. Take care and speak to you again soon.